Shalom and welcome, everyone. So wonderful to see you all this evening. Thank you for bringing your light power and joining us tonight. We have a very fun section to explore tonight. Wow, shall we say. But before we begin, I would like to invite us into the cave that we might meditate so we can explore this mystery. So if you will, allow yourself just to let go of the day, to let go of the moment, to allow yourself just to be present here, letting go of the surface, allowing your body to relax, focusing on your breath, relaxing, going within, turning inward, becoming aware now of the light within and behind your heart, and breathing from this awareness, from this light within and behind your heart, centering here. As we expand this awareness, extending this awareness. Visualize now, if you will, entering into the cave of the Holy Mother, resting in this holy cave. Visualize yourself sitting in this cave, deep in this womb, this mother's womb. We invite the Holy Shekinah. Ascending, descending, centering. We invite and we welcome you, Holy Shekinah, to come abide with us. Take up this discourse. Take up our insights. Illuminate us. Fill us with your holy presence. And may we extend now this light to all beings, giving thanks, giving praise to your blessed name. Amen and amen. So, wow, what a beautiful section tonight. Many mysteries to explore. At the outset of this section, of course, I'm taken by the fact that we're taken into a cave, a womb, as we've started this meditation tonight, and how the Holy Mother, this place of rebirth, this place of this deep, almost like this Ein nature, we enter into this gap as we enter into this cave. And then this whole mystery begins to expand upon this journey of, I guess I'd like to start backwards, because there's so much to explore, and this section is so elaborate, but I don't want to overthink it. I want to keep it essentialized and immediate in our experience if it's possible, but touch upon some of the mysteries that this section is exploring of the days of creation and the second Adam and the coming of the Messiah and the Messianic continuum that is being shared in this particular section. It's very much a heart teaching in our tradition of speaking about the Messianic continuum and the Messiah, the risen Messiah, and the second nature of their second Adam, which is this bornless nature, which is the very essence and nature of who and what we are truly in our nature. But the question is, are we seeing this from unity, or from, I guess, how are we perceiving this? In unity or in sense of lack? Because the essence of this teaching is showing us that Adam Elion, which is this second Adam, is this very Christ, is the very this risen Messiah, this nature of the risen Messiah in its fullness. So at the outset of this section, before creation even begins, before there is any beginning, there is no duality. There is just this essence, this nature, this very nature of who and what we are. And through the creation of the human one, God is expressing God's self through the creation of the human one, so that the human one might come into being, might resonate, and come into being, to come into this awareness of this risen Messiah, this Christ-like nature that is us. Hence this story of creation in Adam Rishon, and the whole story of this conscious evolution of coming into being and awakening in the dream, awakening into coming into being through awakening through the dream, if this is making sense. So we're speaking about a mystery of conscious evolution, of what it means to awaken and remember our true nature from the very beginning, that has never been separate or lost. And this section is speaking this mystery of the inseparability of the inside and outside. And yet, through conscious evolution, there is this play of Elohim, and there's this play of these divine forces that basically represent this coming into being through these different aspects of the soul. We can talk about nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and what it means to awaken in the dream, if I'm making any sense. So many mysteries here to explore. I'm really more open to feel the insights that you're all bringing, because that will help generate conversation for me and help invoke greater insights that we can explore together. So perhaps with that, I would like to open it up to all your wonderful insights that I would love to hear you share with us.
I thought it was. I see what you're talking about, and you see through the length of this reading the progression from nefesh through ruach and neshama. I thought it was really interesting, the linking of the ruach Elohim to the little face of God, and the ruach Yahweh to the greater face of God. I'd never looked at it quite that way. And so we see those different levels of the breath of God, or the Spirit, the Ruach, bringing us from the little face, or the everyday, through our perceptions. That's how I think about it. To the great face of God, the unity.
Yes, beautiful. There's this dance between Ruach Yahweh and Ruach Elohim. And Ruach Yahweh is the spirit of the Holy One, Spirit of God, which would be representing the second Adam. But yet Ruach Elohim and Ruach Yahweh are one. There's only one Adam. There's one. They're not separate. But in the creation story, we hear of Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, breathing upon Adam. And this is like the beginning of light continuum. It's inserting the movement. It's activating God's spirit into evolution for the awakening to transpire. So I'm hearing this mystery of this breath that you're speaking of Ruach Elohim, of breathing upon the human one, and the movement of this light continuous light, this light transmission that will awaken the spirit of the human one to come into being, the stirring that will rejoin the remembrance of Ruach Yahweh, of this full remembrance of this full embodiment of this presence and power joined, which they've never been separate, but the play of coming into being through Ruach Elohim and the play of these divine forces, there is this play of there is this play, just as within incarnation, as we come through different incarnations, of awakening in the dream, of being able to be able to receive this light continuum, to be able to receive this energy, to allow us to return. But all the while realizing that we've never been separate. And I guess that's the teaching here in this particular section that stands out, that ultimately we've never been separate from this realization, but yet through light continuum and coming into being, there is this play of having to restore, remember, rectification, and the sharing through the apostles in this section with Sarah and Salome and Michael. They're sharing the story of how this comes to be, if that's making sense. So I'm hearing your story with the little face, which is the play of Adam HaRishon, and this whole rectification of coming into being, and this return that has to play itself out in the karmic continuum, if that's making any sense.
First off, Ralph, I would like to thank you for bringing that up. That was one part of this reading that was kind of a bit of a blank spot there for me. It was a blind spot. I wasn't seeing much. I think it was just maybe it was too much at that point when I was reading this. But one thing about this that really stood out for me, and out of everything that can be, because it's so fast, this reading, it is like, it almost feels like you're reading 6 books all at the same time. That's what this section reminded me of. But what really kind of stood out was I got these revelations about redemption of the serpent power and how that relates to Yeshua and Miriam coming together. And I could feel and intuit some of the red and the red mother seed and the white father seed, because bringing up this garden, this play in the garden between the two, and what you do when you become two, and this question that is asked. And what really I appreciated was the beginning. Her and the 12 find this cave, and she invokes an uplifting of the middle pillar with these names, eventually, starting with Adonai, going up into Eiah. And I could really see, and then peppered throughout all these stories was just, you kept on hearing about the serpent coming in, until there is this redemption. And it was really, I could feel that deep within me, this redemption of the serpent power is what's happening in this cave, what's happening in this womb. And this is this Seth, this spiritual humanity, is the result of this. This is the gestation of this next evolution in humanity.
Quite beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Yeah, there's so much going on there. And these different evolutions through Cain, Abel, and Seth. And to put it back into our personal experience, and resonating, like I was sharing just prior, this male and female energy can play itself out through not only internally, through our own coming into being, through vast incarnation, through coming into being through incarnation, but over lifetimes of coming into being and remembering and restoring. How many selves within us relate to Cain or to Abel or to Seth, in the sense of there are parts of self that are very much bestial, very much outer. And then we have that which is Abel, which is the faithful, closer to this remembrance, and Seth is the spiritual, where we have this union of male and female in a different body, different configuration. So hearing what you're sharing and this restoring of this desire energy, I can feel it within myself. Rather than putting it outside myself, there are coming into being. There is this journey of restoring. That's a process of coming into being. That's through grace. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's something of the masculine and feminine energy within us. Could potentially have something to do with this nefesh and ruach, this restoring of nefesh and ruach within oneself, through the neshama within and behind all of it that's orchestrating this return. Words are very hard in this description, but we're talking about a mystery of inside and outside that isn't so separate.
I saw that the separation into male and female is kind of an extension of that first separation on the second day, when the separation of the firmament and the waters, and that was where the the seed of contention entered into creation was in that separation. So that's where we go from Yichud to Perud.
Yeah.
In that moment, and so then the separation into male and female, and then the different aspects of that. The first human one joined back to back, and then separated and rejoined face to face. It's all part of that evolution from unity to separation, and then the long journey from separation back to unity.
That is correct.
And it kind of keeps diving in and out of that from all through this story. It keeps coming back and separating again, and just the way Genesis does, oddly enough.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, at the outset, unconscious unity versus coming into being, where there's that second day, which is that transition of now there's a conscious choice. Coming into being, there's the separation. There's incarnation. There is duality. And there has to be this conscious return to a conscious unity versus an unconscious unity. Because everything begins in this unconscious unity where things are unconsciously joined, but not in conscious choice. There hasn't been a full return and an embodiment. And something of this second Adam that is spoken of in this section, and the Messiah and Magdala, is this conscious return to this remembrance. Hence, the second Adam is this awakened Adam, rejoined, restored, through a conscious choice. When we take up the path, when we enter into the path, it's very similar. At first, there's an unconscious unity, but then there's choices that have to be made in our life, in our continuum of coming into being, that help rectify, help join that, what James was talking about, this redirecting of desire energy, that restores us in remembrance, that actually builds awareness, and it builds a body of light that allows us to have this conscious continuity between states of consciousness, where we're not falling in and out of sleep. Because the Cain state is obviously very bestial. There's no continuity in consciousness yet. Whereas with Abel, there is some kind of remembrance beginning to transpire. There's some kind of lucidity in the dream. There's a little bit more continuity of awareness between these selves within us. And there's kind of restoring. When Seth transpires, there's a reawakening spiritually to something yet entirely different. That's what we might call that the Gnostic path, where there's awareness of light continuum and something else yet, that the Abel consciousness isn't quite connecting that dot yet in awareness. It's where, so we can see in this particular section the movement of light transmission within a life wave, or within us, and how we're being able to be able to receive something of that light continuum. So I'm hearing that in what you're sharing, Ralph, if that's making sense. Try not to put it so far outside us, but back into our own experience, because we all have these aspects within us, and so it's not so separate.
And as you're speaking of these different aspects with Cain and Abel, I'm reminded of the fact that in the story, it is Cain who kills Abel, and then it is the Holy One who removes Cain. And this is a very curious way for this space to be created for Seth to arise. So I'm hearing in this insight into the crucifixion here as to this is what we've been talking about so much lately with our weave and bringing that into it, and that this is the totality of us being brought in here and brought to the Holy One, so the Holy One can create this space and this grace can move for this Seth to arrive.
Absolutely wonderful insight. Yeah, we've been sharing in Shabbat's past how our karma isn't so separate that it helps us come into being through the karmic matrix, the karmic continuum, and that by including or resolving, or this resolution is not to push away, but to fully integrate and to use the karmic continuum, our karma, is what I'm hearing you say, to uplift and to join all aspects of self so that all is included, that there's nothing left out. And by doing so, there's a full regeneration, a full embodiment of something new, something restored. From what I'm hearing you say, is that what I'm hearing you share? Something of that full integration of the light continuum into all aspects of self.
Yes, because this is our as we walk through this path, this life that we live, there's influences from these archons, and it's this in the story of Cain and Abel. Cain is the one crucifying Abel, and there's this that's happening within us, and this creates this space. So yes, that is, you hit it right on.
Yeah, there's no with Cain. There's no continuity. There is no awareness of the cause and effect of inside and outside, and everything is pasted to the outside. And everything comes from. We're blaming everything on the outside, as though this causes that, and we're not connecting the dots with internally how our energy, how our awareness, how our interaction with something is creating the outcome. We're separating it so much. Hence, it becomes the dream entirely outside of oneself, unaware. And that's okay too, because that's part of coming into being. So there's no better or lesser than, it's just the awareness to be able to perceive. And that is something that when we come into Abel's offering, there's something more of that happening on the right.
Yes, what I'm seeing in the cave, I'm seeing a sacred circle of 12 stones with the Magdala in the middle. So in the 12, it's envisioning the completion of the complete human one. And as James was pointing out earlier, the Magdala begins from the center to invoke up the center pillar, picturing the ascension. And then in the story, it goes through the various cycles, involving, I imagine, the Ophan, picturing the different cycles of humanity as it progressed through the messianic revelation. And by the time they get to the end, each of them come out as knowers. So they've risen up that center pillar up to Yahweh Elohim, the complete human one, the complete name. So that's what I'm seeing, in the story here.
Very beautiful. Thank you. Wow. I'm feeling what you're saying too. In the matrix of the entirety of all beings forces that make up the entirety, that together make up the body of the risen Messiah, that they're all these weaves make up this awareness of what we might call the body of light, and this awakening of the risen Messiah, not separate. So I'm feeling all the play of the divine forces, angelic, jinn, and all these different forces, attributes of the Holy One, that when we join, there's rectification of joining with the holy name of the Holy One, we're joining these beings' forces in that ascent, unifying within and without, and seeing no difference. So I'm seeing this great matrix, including the 12 that you're speaking, which is the fullness of the human one. But included in that is the entirety of the matrix, in which we're uplifting all these beings' forces while we're being joined in this remembrance. There isn't any separation from that, within and without. It's as though they are part of the body of light that makes up this awareness, if I'm making sense. I can feel that in what you're saying. Not so separate. So your coming into being is not so separate from theirs. They're like integral. So I've shared this before, I think, on a Tuesday night before, feeling that all of our evolutions are coming into being are integral to each other. It's not so separate or linear. It's not like my salvation is separate from your salvation or from another. They're integral in the weave of coming into being. So the choices that we make, the coming into being that we take up, could very well, and very does well, affect others coming into being. They're intricately woven. They're not so separate. So I'm feeling that in the circle that you're describing of this great matrix of interfacing within and without. And I think that's how Zadokим and Holy Ones help uplift and join others into this matrix of light, this light continuum, if I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yes. The other thing was regarding the number 13 is the same number as ahava, love. So you're seeing, as Malachi has said many times, it's all in the love. And so that occurred to me as well.
Beautiful, yeah. I'm feeling that as well. The innate unity of this love, this compassion, is the very innate to who and what we are in our true being. There's no thought and thinking in that. When one's enacting this compassion, this love, it's because that's truly our nature. And when enacting it, we are manifesting it. It can't be separate because it's who and what we are. So I'm feeling that beautiful connection with Ahava and 13. It has something to do with the male and female joined in this unity, this male and female.
I was also reading this, very fascinated by this description of that cave. Like it's a whole matrix, and it's that one soul, and it reminded me of the cave that also Plato described, where he described us as we're sitting in this cave, and there's like we're sitting with the back to the light, and on the walls of that cave there's this flickering of shadows, which we think is reality, and that kind of made me think that there are those 4 stages. There's that unconscious unity we had before everything, before the separation, but then we fall into the unconscious separation, which would be Cain, and then into there's a dimming that light source, and those shadows there, it arises from something maybe intrinsic to ourselves, for our own inner light. So there is a conscious separation that everything is not out there. There's also something in here which would be able, and then the final realization, which is the conscious unity. So we had that whole journey as that one soul, and how anointed community works as a birth helper in that regard. It's almost like this huge womb that contains, like, I remember Sadiq told us that all souls that ever has been or will be realized are like gathered, and those that the more we become aware in that consciousness of being birth helper for that light, we can lead, we can for our own sake open up and take more of that in, but we can also be birth helpers and help others realize that light within that cave where so we go from staring at those flickering shadows that we don't see any connection to, we actually realize that it all arises from that light within us. So did you have anything?
Yes. When you talk about the flickering shadows, it reminds me that Adam is sleeping and that he is awake. And when he goes to sleep, he is filled with that supernal breath, the original breath. And upon sleeping, he is split in 2. And during that time, the serpent comes between, specifically the way it was phrased in the story, come between Adam and Eve. And I kind of seen that as how the shin in the name of Yeshua, how it sat there and it was part of the name. And at some point it does say that everything that the Holy Eternal One does is intentional. It's meant to be. And we know that when we are unconscious of certain things, we leave space open. So I kind of see that's where the serpent came in. And I also see it as a shin. And the other part is, before Messiah Magdala came and Yeshua came, we had all the prophets. They were like kind of like preparing the ground of the garden, if you want, for the people to be opening and prepared to start to receive the awakening when they came, and then they embodied that wholeness, bringing down the fullness of the Holy Shekinah. And even though in this dreamlike reality, we might only have the holy breath in us because it went from the supernal breath to the holy breath. Upon baptism, our intention is to open ourselves, to surrender, and to receive our whole self. So I kind of see that as our stepping stone to our awakening when we have our baptism of the water and the fire. That was kind of running through me. And at some point, closing that gap, coming face to face, uplifting that shin to where it belongs, and taking off all that other part of it that no longer belongs. Because I do believe, if I'm not correct, Brother Yoel, that shin represents a snake, does it not? As a Hebrew letter?
Fiery. It could be a dove.
Well, see the transformation just in that. So that's where I was seeing that, because I kind of seen as the shin came in, that was like the start of the karmic continuum. And we were talking about not resisting that, and we're told all the time not to resist or push away, but to, you know, let it go by and be consciously aware of it. Because as one thing I tell my kids all the time, if you're not consciously aware of something, you have no power over it to change it or do anything with it until you actually know it's there. So those were some of the things that arose for me.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I'm taking in everything you're sharing in that space of filling that space or joining that gap, and the shin descending, and this remanifestation, and what that means in the dream. And Adam sleeping and awakening in the dream, or becoming more aware in the dream, and what that does to the dream, how it changes the dream and fills that gap. And feeling that, and how what you were sharing with these holy ones throughout time, playing their part of coming into being, and until the full reception of Messiah could be received. There's something of that gap that's still not completely joined. Whereas at the dawn of the Messiah and the Magdala, and the full reception of the bride and the bridegroom, there's something of that playing out of that karmic continuum that I'm hearing. If I'm hearing you, there's something about until the coming of Messiah and the joining of the Messiah, there hasn't been a full reception of that shin, of reuniting and giving that birth, of that baptism of the light from above, that is our true essence and nature. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Because when I was talking about the prophets and that to come before, if you imagine they were the ones preparing the ground, putting down some fertilizer, and then the Messiah and the Magdala came and started planting those seeds. And with the baptism and following our path, we're like, you know, like the watering. I have that gardener thing with Magdala outside the tomb thinking about the gardener, but the body of the Messiah, like Lars was saying, we don't just do for oneself, we're doing for all, because there's only one body. So there's one gardener. Wow, it's so many jobs.
Yeah, beautiful. I can see that, or feel that. When we have this remembrance of this restoration within oneself, quite naturally, energetically, we will affect others in our sphere of sensation, or in our continuum, or in our space, however you want to define it. When we start to awaken this energy within us, this holy nature, this remembrance, quite naturally, it will start resonating others around us, whether they're aware of it or not. And I can see that in the gardening and analogy of keeping one's continuum and what it does, how it affects others in a way to uplift and restore them, whatever level of awareness they can be received, whatever can be received. This goodness, this light of awareness draws that out of another. By simply being in the heart, by simply being in this remembrance, we become these gardeners, these tenders of the continuum that allow others to reap and realize this energy. So it's not so separate. I like how you're including it in whatever actions that we can uplift or join in this compassion, this action of love. Definitely, I can feel that, how that uplift others into this awareness as well. If I'm feeling you, that's what I'm hearing from what you're saying, that simple actions or not so simple actions, just keeping the continuum and being in the heart is quite essential.
This idea of gardening reminded me of a contemplation I've been seeing lately, especially now that we're in the time where we start our gardens. And as the gardener, you just create these conditions in this space, and there's very minimal once you get there, treating the weeds and stuff like that. But there's this ecosystem that's mutual beneficial to everything involved, from we have bees and wasps to these big orb weaver spiders that come in, and all the insects in the soil that we have, and just all of this that is involved with this ecosystem, this plant life, all designed to bear this fruit. And it's very beautiful. And another, just a little bit step deeper, is the growing of, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Three Sisters. And this is it's a plant-based, full protein, all amino acids that you need. And it's the growing of squash, corn, and beans. And corn is something that doesn't grow wild. It needs humans to produce. Otherwise, it would stay closed and it wouldn't be able to reproduce. If humans went away, so would corn. We wouldn't have it anymore. But the way these three plants work together is the squash has these big leaves and they coat the ground. They keep it moist and they keep the weeds away. The beans, with the way they grow, they actually increase nutrient levels in the soil. It's a very cool process. And then the corns grow up and the beans grow up these corn stalks. And when you plant these three things together, it's kind of this, they all take care of each other. And by the time you're done at the end of the growing season, there's actually more nutrients in the soil and you have a complete protein. It's a staple of life. And it's just a very wonderful contemplation. So thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I can feel that full matrix that was being shared earlier by Kevin as well. And the full play, the full display, the magical display of the Shekinah and community. In this section, there's much emphasis of the bride and the community as being essential to this fullness of the Holy One. And so I'm hearing that with the community. And how each of us, through our strengths and weaknesses, make up that continuum. And we each benefit from each other in a way that uplifts and nurtures and draws out the fullness of the bride. That is the bride, is that fullness. And quite magically, by her presence, that fullness of what I'm hearing you share through this full garden and the benefits of all the elements that are involved, all the attributes that make it up, are beneficial to each other and allows the fullness. I really feel this is probably something of this second Adam, the fullness that is our very nature. There's no, and the bride being essential to that element of that fullness, if that's making any sense. But I'm feeling that in what you're sharing with the garden. Thank you. It's really draws out the bride and what community is, because each of us in our own way make up this matrix. So together.
I just have to throw in, because you talked about those three, and it makes me think, nothing here in this reality survives without water, without the heat of the fire, and without the air we breathe. And those three things are actually out of our control. So it's quite interesting to see it on that level too.
Yeah. I'm intrigued about light and fire of the continuum, of the light continuum, of the Holy Messiah bringing light and fire, and what it does to this being reborn from above, but in a entirely different way, entirely. Rematrix the body of light, shall we say. So I'm feeling that with the out of controlness in the sense of being reborn, remade entirely in a new way. Because I think there has to be this surrender that was spoken earlier, but in a way not of, in a full surrender, there is this real recognition of the ground from which everything arises and not separate from it, and being reborn from that ground. There's something about what you're sharing that shatters duality in a way that allows us to be remade from above in a completely different way.
Yeah, on that note, something that occurred to me, like with baptism, water cleanses. The fire actually transforms the substance that it touches. And I think that it speaks to, the overall arc here of there's this unity, but it's in like an unconscious unity. And then through this process, the continuum of light, it's brought into a conscious unity throughout the whole arc of the story, you might say.
Yeah, I can feel that healing, and I guess it's part of the journey. It's part of the no goal but the path. If I'm hearing you, there's this whole reintegration to the light continuum that is integral. If I'm hearing what you're saying, of this being restored, is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, I was just really thinking that there's like a fundamental transformation that occurs through the process of separation that inevitably leads to the unification. You might say through emptiness, through that a substance without a substance. It's the shin, I think, that El was talking about. And actually, something that stood out to me was Seth in this chapter, Shin Tao. That's actually how it's spelled in Hebrew. I thought that was quite interesting. You have to me, Shin obviously, has a fiery aspect to it. And then you have Tao, which is a grounding aspect. And this is the final being, so I was quite enamored with that particular little piece of this that you could probably extrapolate from this one chapter for eternity. All the stuff that's in it. But that's what stood out to me.
Yeah, I can feel that. The emptiness piece, I think, really stands out. And recognizing that we're no thingness. We don't have a beginning or an end, in the sense of there is no essential. We can't find the self there because there is no self in that sense. There is just the one. And when Ren embodies something of that, it's a self-generative. Because there's no attachment. There's no fixed. There's no conception of self in that sense. There's just this awareness of true being and embodying something of that awareness. So yeah, I can definitely feel that in the shin and the fiery of what a Tao in our tradition, but they're embodying something of this non-dual awareness that is not fixed in any way, shape, or form at all, and living from that awareness.
One thing I found that was interesting in the subject of Enoch, the perfection of Enoch, Tao wrote, in the first true knower of God, with him supernal realization dawned, but it said it wasn't time for the Messiah, and that word time just kind of stuck in my mind, especially when we started to talk about gardening and that sort of thing. That there's a time to sow, there's a time to reap. In everything there's a proper time, and it can't be rushed. And so I guess I was seeing that in terms of the role of Enoch in a bit of a different way. This issue of the timing for the coming of Messiah, everything had to be put in place. Everything had to be just right. The ground had to be just set so that he was, it just wasn't the right time then. So for the plan to be complete.
Absolutely. Yep. The reception, there was something in that reception of Enoch that couldn't be received in light transmission at that point. And it was, like you're saying, the reception and the ripeness of that timing was not set. And so, until the Messiah came, in the sense of being able to receive something of that fullness, it just was not yet. The timing of coming into being was not yet, could not be received. It would have been overwhelming, or whatever the case in humanity. It just was not. Baking it would have made things a disaster. It wouldn't have been a good meal. Let's just put it that way. Things would have been a little more disastrous looking. So there's timing within our own continuum, within our own life, being able to receive this levels of awareness that help draw out the fullness of our being, and there's a timing with it in the sense of the Shekinah's timing and the Holy Spirit's timing of when things are ripe. And if it's premature, it could have the reverse effect in consciousness or humanity. It could be devastating. So I'm hearing that.
Ned, I shared a prayer that you brought up, and it made me remind, and like basically everything we've been talking about this whole is in this prayer. I believe there's a connection between that prayer and this chapter.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was just looking at it, it's like, oh wow, that's like right on point. So thank you. I also appreciate your practical note about the three sisters. I really appreciated that.
Well, perhaps this is a good place to seal. I really appreciate all your insights in helping me to draw out more of this teaching, because it's so vast and such a big section, and to touch all of it and talk about it would be quite a bit. So I really appreciate all of you helping me draw something of that out. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you. May we just give thanks and blessings to the Holy Shekinah, the Holy One of Being, for drawing out these mysteries, to be able to participate and uplift, to share something of this light continuum, something of this energy that we can touch upon. We give thanks to you, Holy One. May we extend this light. May we extend the merit of this light to all beings, that all may receive, that all may be healed and restored to this remembrance. May this light go forth, touching all. Thank you. Shalom and blessings. Amen and amen.